She kissed the poster at midnight, alone, lips pressed to a 16-foot banner of a face she would never meet. Jennifer Hayes, 24, black, brilliant, invisible. 9 days building a soul exhibition nobody would credit her for. No name badge, no thank you. Just a temporary contract and a ladder that wobbled beneath her boots. So when exhaustion won and she rose on her toes to kiss the corner of a printed mouth, she figured the universe owed her that much. He's not your type. The voice came from the service entrance. Low, unhurried, a man in a suit that cost more than her rent, silver streak slicing through dark hair, the edge of a dragon tattoo rising above his collar. Kang Siwoo, the Grey Prince, heir to the empire that owned the building she stood in. She didn't bow, she didn't apologize. She pointed at the crooked banner and said, "Hold this ladder for me." And he did. He kept coming back. 3 mornings in a row, 9:14 sharp, no reason he'd admit. She dragged him to street food carts. He ate standing up, sauce on his thumb, jaw unclenched, for the first time in years. Then his best friend, the face on that poster, walked into the gallery, grinned at Jennifer, and invited her to dinner. Siwoo's fingers curled at his side. A small motion, she caught it. A woman who refuses to be invisible. A man whose world runs on silence. And a rivalry that turns every room into a lit fuse. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. The ladder wobbled. Jennifer gripped the top rung with one hand and stretched the other toward the ceiling mount. A 16-foot banner of Do-yoon's face swaying above her like a sail caught in a draft. Her fingers brushed the hook, missed. She climbed one rung higher, and the aluminum frame groaned beneath her boots. Gangnam Art Center sat empty at 11 p.m. Every fluorescent panel buzzed its low electric hymn across the exhibition hall. 42 photographs hung along the east wall, each one color-corrected, each one printed on archival mat, each one mounted by Jennifer Hayes over the past 9 days. Nobody had thanked her, nobody had noticed. She steadied herself and drove the grommet onto the hook. The banner unfurled. Do-yoon's jawline stretched floor to ceiling, airbrushed and imperious, the kind of face that sold cologne and broke leases. Jennifer climbed down, dragged the ladder 3 meters left, and started again. This was her 6th exhibition build in Seoul. Temporary contract, no credit line in the program, no name badge at the opening reception. The agency listed her as support staff, creative. She called herself what she was, the person who made it look like nobody had done any work at all. Her phone buzzed on the supply table. A message from the agency. Contract extension unlikely. Final review, August 9. 8 days. She read it, locked the screen, and went back to the ladder. Panic was a luxury she could schedule for the subway ride home. By midnight, the hall looked immaculate. Track lighting hit every print at the exact angle she'd calculated with a protractor and a prayer. The massive Do-yoon banner dominated the entrance wall, backlit, ridiculous, magnetic. Jennifer stood in the center of the room and turned a slow circle. Perfect. All of it. And tomorrow the curator would walk in, nod once, and tell the press he'd overseen every detail personally. She stopped turning when she faced the banner again. Do-yoon stared down at her with that manufactured intensity photographers loved, chin tilted, lips parted, one eyebrow doing more acting than most people managed with their entire bodies. "You know what?" Jennifer said to the empty hall. "You owe me dinner." She walked up to the banner. The paper smelled like fresh ink and ambition. She rose on her toes and pressed her lips to the corner of his printed mouth. A quick, theatrical kiss, half joke, half exhaustion, the kind of thing a person does when nobody is watching and the week has been too long. "He's not your type." The voice came from behind her, low, unhurried, accented in a way that suggested the speaker had learned English from people who never raised theirs. Jennifer spun. Her heel caught the base of the ladder, and she stumbled sideways, catching herself on the supply table. A roll of gaffer tape hit the floor and spiraled into the dark. He stood near the service entrance, tall, still, hands in the pockets of a suit that cost more than her rent. The first thing she registered was his height. Then the jawline, sharper than the one on the banner. Then the streak of silver cutting through his black hair above the left temple, a pale slash that looked deliberate, like someone had drawn it there with intention. Kang Si-woo watched her with the patient expression of a man who had nowhere else to be and found this more entertaining than wherever he'd come from. An onyx ring caught the track light on his right hand. Above his collar, the edge of ink, dark lines rising along his neck, the tail of something scaled. "Excuse me?" Jennifer's voice carried the particular brightness of someone deciding in real time whether to be embarrassed or furious. Furious 1. Who are you, and how long have you been standing there? Long enough. He glanced at the banner. His nose is retouched. You can do better. I wasn't, that was. It's an industry tradition. It was not an industry tradition. And you haven't answered my question. I own the building. He said it the way someone might mention owning a coat. Jennifer looked at him, looked at the hall, looked back. You own Gangnam Art Center. The holding company does. I sign the checks. He hadn't moved from the doorway. His posture suggested he rarely needed to move toward anything. Things came to him. She should have been intimidated. She should have straightened her blouse, lowered her voice, performed the small theater of deference that Seoul's corporate architecture demanded. Instead, she pointed at the 16-foot banner, still swinging slightly from its mount. Great. Then hold this ladder for me. That grommet on the right is crooked, and it's been driving me insane for an hour. Silence. The fluorescent hum filled it. Si-woo tilted his head. In the boardrooms of Seongrim Holdings, grown men rehearsed their sentences before speaking to him. His lieutenant carried a second phone exclusively for calls Si-woo might redirect. The last person who had given him a direct order was his father, and that conversation had ended with a door frame cracking down the middle. He walked to the ladder. He gripped both sides with hands that had done things the exhibition program would never reference. He held it steady. Jennifer climbed. The rung creaked. She reached the grommet, twisted it flush against the hook, and tugged the banner taut. From above, she could see the silver streak in his hair more clearly. Not dyed, not aesthetic, something earned. Tighter, she said. Pull the base toward you. He pulled. The banner snapped flat. Perfect tension. She climbed down and landed a half step closer to him than either of them expected. This near, she could smell cedar and something metallic, like a room where deals closed and didn't reopen. But his eyes were narrow, dark brown, reading her the way she imagined he read contracts, searching for the clause that would cost him. Thank you, she said. You're surprisingly useful for a landlord. The corner of his mouth moved, not a smile, the architectural sketch of one. You're surprisingly fearless for someone who just kissed a poster. Jennifer felt heat climb her neck, but kept her gaze level. Fearless is a strong word. I prefer efficient. I needed morale. He was available. She grabbed the gaffer tape from the floor and tossed it onto the table. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have 14 more lighting angles to verify before I lose this contract and have to explain to my mother why I moved to Seoul to hang pictures of men I'll never meet. She turned her back on him and walked toward the east wall. Behind her, she heard no footsteps, no door. He was still there, still watching, still holding the ladder nobody had asked him to release. 3 days in a row, Kang Si-woo walked through the exhibition doors at exactly 9:14 in the morning. Not 9, not 9:30, 9:14. as if punctuality itself bent around his schedule. The first day, he brought blueprints, rolled architectural drawings tucked under his arm like a peace offering nobody requested. "The south wall needs reinforcement," he said, spreading them across Jennifer's work table without invitation. She stared at the drawings, then at him. "You could have emailed these." He considered that. "I could have." The second day, he arrived with a contractor, a terrified man in a hard hat who measured walls while Siwoo stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching Jennifer hang photographs with a level she'd borrowed from maintenance. She caught him staring. He looked away exactly 1 second too late. The third day, he came alone. No blueprints, no contractor, no excuse at all. He simply stood near the east entrance and observed her argue with a lighting vendor over color temperature. When the vendor folded, Siwoo's mouth twitched. "Almost a smile, almost. You enjoy watching people surrender," Jennifer said, crossing the gallery toward him. "Only the ones who deserve it." She should have let it go. Instead, she pulled out her phone, typed his name into a search engine, and held up the screen. Kang Si-woo, heir to the Kang family empire, philanthropist, according to polite headlines. Something worse, according to the rest. "You let me boss you around," she said. Her voice carried no volume, but every syllable hit like a verdict. "You held my ladder. You fetched my coffee. She scrolled through another article. "You own this building." He didn't deny it. "Were you entertained?" she asked. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not amusement, not guilt. The look of a man seen clearly for the first time. "No one has spoken to me like that in 11 years, he said. "That's not my problem." "I know," he paused. "That's why I kept coming back." Jennifer shoved her phone into her pocket and grabbed her jacket from the back of a chair. "You're buying me lunch. Street food. No drivers, no reservations, no—" She gestured vaguely at his entire presence. "Whatever this is." They walked. Siwoo moved through the Itaewon crowds like a man unused to sidewalks, shoulders rigid, gaze sweeping intersections out of habit. Jennifer stopped at a Ttaokbaki cart and ordered 2 portions without asking what he wanted. He ate standing up, rice cake sauce on his thumb. He wiped it with a napkin she handed him, and for a moment, he looked like any other person on a Tuesday afternoon. "You're smiling," she said. "I'm not." Your jaw unclenched. "For you, that's a parade." The following week, Han Do-yeon arrived. He swept into the gallery like weather, bright, loud, impossible to ignore. 3 assistants trailed him. 2 carried garment bags. 1 carried a smoothie that Do-yeon hadn't touched. Siwoo-ya. He wrapped his arms around Siwoo, who endured the embrace the way a cliff endures rain. Do-yeon pulled back, grinning. His gaze found Jennifer immediately. "Ah, so this is why you've been ignoring my calls." "I haven't ignored your calls," Siwoo said. "You answered once. In 4 days. For you, that's a blackout." Do-yeon extended his hand to Jennifer. "Han Do-yeon, you've seen my face on buses." "I take the subway," Jennifer said. Do-yeon laughed. A real one, startled out of him. He spotted the Aurora comeback poster pinned to Jennifer's mood board near the supply station. Before anyone could object, he pulled a silver marker from his jacket, crossed the gallery, and signed it with a flourish that covered half the image. "There," he said. "Now it's worth something." Siwoo's fingers curled at his side. A small motion. Jennifer caught it. Do-yeon leaned against the work table, arms folded, radiating the easy confidence of a man who'd never entered a room without applause. "Jennifer, let me take you to dinner. I know a place in Gangnam. Rooftop, private, extraordinary view." "She's busy," Siwoo said. The gallery went quiet. Even the lighting vendor stopped pretending to adjust a fixture. "I don't remember asking you," Do-yeon said, still smiling. His eyes, though, His eyes were studying Siwoo with the precision of someone conducting an experiment. Jennifer looked between them. The tension had a texture, something old and well-practiced, a rivalry dressed in brotherhood. "I'll think about it," she told Do-yoon. Then, to Siwoo, "Stop answering for me." She walked away. Behind her, Do-yoon whispered something in Korean. Siwoo's reply was 2 words, low enough to scrape the floor. 2 weeks later, a black car arrived at Jennifer's apartment. An invitation on cream-colored paper. Dinner at the Kang residence. She wore her long coat and chose small gold hoops, the simple pair, the ones that meant she wasn't trying. Ara helped her pick the blouse and then spent 20 minutes reminding her to breathe. The mansion unfolded like a held breath. Stone walls, manicured pine, a courtyard where lanterns floated above dark water. Jennifer followed a housekeeper through corridors that smelled of cedar and old money. The dining room seated 14. Only 5 chairs were occupied. At the head of the table sat a small woman with silver hair and jade at both wrists. Jennifer's stomach dropped. The flower market. 3 days ago. The woman who'd taught her to trim chrysanthemum stems laughed at her Korean pronunciation, pressed peonies into her hands, and refused payment. Kang Eun-suk lifted her teacup and smiled as if she'd been waiting for this exact reaction. "Sit, dear," the matriarch said. "The soup is getting cold." Dinner lasted 2 hours. Eun-suk asked about Jennifer's work, her family in Virginia, her opinion on persimmon season. Siwoo said almost nothing, but his gaze returned to Jennifer every time she spoke, pulled like gravity toward sound. Afterward, he walked her through the garden. Moonlight caught the pond, turning the water into hammered silver. Crickets filled every silence they left. "She planned this," Jennifer said. "Your grandmother. The flower market wasn't an accident." "Nothing my grandmother does is an accident." They stopped beneath a pine, bent by decades of coastal wind. Jennifer turned to face him. The distance between them had been shrinking for weeks, hallway by hallway, argument by argument, and now it amounted to less than a breath. "You're the first person," he said, "who made me feel like I had a choice." She kissed him, not gently, not carefully. The way you kiss someone when waiting has become its own kind of wound. He kissed her back. His hand found the curve of her jaw. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. "Much better than the poster," he whispered. Somewhere inside the mansion, a light turned on in a high window. A small silhouette adjusted her jade bracelet and smiled before drawing the curtain closed. 3 weeks passed like stolen currency. Spent fast, remembered slow. Jennifer left her sketchpad on his kitchen counter one Tuesday and never took it back. Siwoo started brewing her coffee before she arrived, the cup waiting on the marble edge like a quiet confession. Mornings folded into each other. She drew while he read contracts, their shoulders almost touching, and neither moved away. He called her at midnight when the city turned off. She answered on the first ring. They talked about nothing: bad takeout, childhood pets, the way Seoul smelled after rain. His voice dropped lower in the dark, stripped of every wall he built during daylight. "You laugh too loud," he said once. "I hear it 3 rooms away." She smiled into the phone. "Good." Park Min-jun noticed first. He found Jennifer's earring on the conference table and placed it in a small envelope without a word. The staff exchanged glances they thought were invisible. Jennifer caught 2 of them whispering near the elevator and stared until they scattered. She refused to be anyone's secret, but Siwoo moved through the world like a man dismantling a bomb. Every gesture calculated, every step deliberate. She told herself patience was not the same as silence. On a Thursday afternoon, Kang Tae-hyun made his move. He sat in a leather chair across from a journalist he had known for 15 years and slid a folder across the table. Inside, fabricated engagement documents, a staged photograph from a charity gala, and a quote attributed to the Kang family spokesperson. The Grey Prince and Seo Hye-rin, a union of legacy and ambition. The journalist raised an eyebrow. Taehyun smiled. Print it tonight. By morning, the headline covered every major outlet in Seoul. Jennifer saw it during a creative briefing. Her phone buzzed. Choi Ara had sent 3 messages in a row, each one a different screenshot. The words blurred. She read the name Seo Hye-rin 4 times before it landed. Engaged. She set her phone face down on the table and finished the meeting with a voice that did not belong to her. Siwoo found out 20 minutes later. He stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear, jaw rigid. Siwoo. He called Taehyun first. No answer. He called the family's media liaison and ordered a retraction. The liaison hesitated. Sir, your uncle authorized the release. Retracting without board consensus would. Siwoo hung up. He made 6 more calls in 12 minutes. None of them were to Jennifer. He moved the way Kangs always moved, behind walls, through channels, above the mess. He believed he was protecting her. He believed distance from the machinery would keep her clean. He contacted Hye-rin directly. She answered with a sigh that carried its own exhaustion. I saw it. I already told my father this arrangement is dead, but your uncle doesn't listen to daughters either. Siwoo thanked her and hung up. 2 problems managed, 3 more to contain. Jennifer waited 4 hours. She sat at her desk and sketched nothing. The pencil moved, but the lines were empty. Ara called twice. She declined both. At 6 in the evening, she walked to Siwoo's office. The hallway stretched longer than it ever had. He stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled, papers spread like a battlefield. He looked up when she entered and something fractured behind his expression, relief and dread arriving together. I'm handling it, he said. The retraction will run by tomorrow. Hye-rin has already. When were you going to tell me? He stopped. His hands settled flat on the desk. I wanted to resolve it before. Before I found out from a news article? Before Aura sent me screenshots? Her voice stayed level. That was the part that frightened him. The calm. He had prepared for anger. You made 12 calls today. I know because Min-jun told me when I asked. 12 calls, and not one of them was to me. I was trying to fix. You were trying to control. She stepped closer. The distance between them shrank to something unbearable. You decided what I should know. You decided when I should feel it. You decided the best version of this story for me to receive, packaged and resolved, like I'm a client. She paused. You're doing exactly what they do. The words hit him the way silence never could. He opened his mouth and nothing arrived. But she watched him search for the argument that would make this logical, the strategy that would turn her pain into a problem he could solve. She watched him fail. I'm not a situation to manage, Siwoo. She turned and walked out. Her footsteps were steady. She did not look back. The door closed with a soft click. No slam, no drama, just the quiet departure of someone who had made a decision. Siwoo stood alone in his office. Seoul glittered through the window behind him, 40 floors of indifferent light. He had silenced boardrooms, ended partnerships, and stared down men twice his age without flinching. But the sound of that door closing reached somewhere no negotiation had ever touched. He picked up his phone. Her name glowed on the screen. His thumb hovered, then he set it down. For the first time in his life, the Grey Prince had no move left to make. And 3 floors below, Jennifer sat in her car with the engine off, gripping the steering wheel with both hands, breathing in counts of 4, refusing to cry in a parking garage that smelled like gasoline and cold concrete. 3 days passed before Siwoo stopped reaching for his phone. Not because the urge faded, because he finally understood what it meant. Every instinct told him to call her, to send flowers, to have Min-jun deliver an apology wrapped in cashmere. Every instinct was wrong. He sat in his father's study, surrounded by portraits of Kang men who had built empires by bending the world to fit their hands. He looked at his own hands. They were shaking. "You're not eating," Yoon Suk said from the doorway. Holding a tray, she clearly had no intention of carrying herself. "I'm thinking. Dangerous hobby for a Kang man." She set the tray on the desk and sat across from him, studying his face the way she studied quarterly reports, with patience and zero sentiment. "You look like your grandfather the week before he proposed to me." Terrified. "Were you worth the terror?" "I was worth everything, but he had to figure that out by letting me be difficult." She folded her hands. "You tried to build a cage and call it a garden. Siwoo. The girl has legs. Let her walk." He stared at the portraits again. 3 generations of men who loved fiercely and suffocated completely. His father had controlled his mother's friendships. His grandfather had chosen Yoon Suk's wardrobe until she burned half his closet in 1987. The pattern was genetic, baked into the family like the silver streak in his hair, but patterns were choices dressed up as destiny, and Siwoo was tired of choosing wrong. Across the city, Jennifer chose differently too. She didn't sleep, she worked. The apartment became a war room of sketches and mood boards, coffee rings marking the hours like tree rings marking years. The heartbreak didn't disappear. She fed it into something useful. By Tuesday morning, she had a campaign concept that made her hands steady again. People behind the posters. 12 spreads celebrating the designers, photographers, lighting techs, and assistants who built the images the world worshipped. No celebrity faces on the cover. No famous names in the headline. Just the invisible army, finally visible. She pitched it Thursday at 9 a.m. in a conference room where she knew no one. No Kang connections, no whispered introductions, no safety net made of silk and obligation. Just her portfolio, her voice, and a concept sharp enough to cut glass. The creative director leaned back. "Who sent you?" "Nobody sent me. I sent myself." 14 minutes later, she walked out with an approved campaign and a production budget. Her phone buzzed. A text from Doyun. "Heard you're making moves without the gray prince. About time. Drinks?" She typed back, "Rain check. I'm busy being impressive." Siwoo heard about the approval, the way everyone in Seoul's creative world heard about everything, through the gossip network that moved faster than fiber optics. His first instinct was to call the agency, to congratulate her through a proxy, to leave his fingerprints on her victory like a signature on a check. He picked up the phone, put it down, picked it up again, put it down harder. Minjun watched from the hallway, saying nothing, which was the loudest thing Minjun had ever communicated. "Don't," Siwoo said without looking up. "I didn't say anything." "You were thinking it." "I was thinking you should eat the soup your grandmother brought." Siwoo ate the soup. He did not call the agency. He did not send flowers. He did not arrange a casual encounter at her favorite coffee shop. He sat with the discomfort of letting someone he loved succeed without him, and it was the hardest thing he had ever done, harder than walking away from the family business, harder than standing in the rain outside a gallery pretending his chest wasn't collapsing. He let her win be hers, completely, without asterisks. 2 weeks later, the exhibition reopened with Jennifer's campaign mounted on every wall. Opening night pulled a crowd that spilled onto the sidewalk. Jennifer wore a black dress she'd bought with her own paycheck and heels that made her tall enough to look the world in the eye. She moved through the gallery slowly, watching strangers study her work, reading their faces for the moment recognition landed. Near the east wall, she stopped. The poster. Doyun's poster. The same one from that first night. The same impossible cheekbones and manufactured smolder. But now a signature slashed across the bottom corner in silver ink. "She was never your type anyway. She's his. DY. Jennifer laughed. A real laugh, the kind that started in the stomach and ended with her pressing her fingers to her mouth. She turned around. Siwoo stood exactly where he'd stood that first night. Same spot, same gallery, but everything else had changed. No entourage flanking him like a wall, no Minjun scanning exits, no family name entering the room before he did. Just a man in a dark coat with a silver streak catching the gallery light, and an expression she had never seen on his face before. Open, unguarded, entirely hers. "I'm not going to tell you what your type is," he said. She didn't move. Smart. "But I'd like to spend a very long time being it." The distance between them was 8 feet. She closed it in 4 steps. He met her halfway, 2 steps he'd been saving for weeks. The kiss happened under Duyun's autographed poster, in the exact spot where a stranger had once grabbed her face without asking. But this time, every inch was chosen. His hands settled on her waist like they'd rehearsed it. Her fingers found the silver streak and stayed. The crowd pretended not to watch. Do-yun, standing near the bar with Rin, raised his glass to no one in particular. Yoon-suk, monitoring via a live feed, Min-jun, was definitely not supposed to be streaming, nodded once, and closed her tablet. Jennifer pulled back just enough to speak. "You didn't call. After the pitch, you didn't do anything." "I know. That's the most romantic thing anyone has ever not done for me." He smiled, not the controlled half-smile of a Kang heir managing his image, but the full, unarmored version that made him look exactly his age. "I'm learning. Learn faster." She kissed him again. Outside, Seoul moved the way Seoul always moves. Neon and noise, and 10 million private stories unfolding at once. Inside the gallery, under a poster of a man who was nobody's type and everybody's fantasy, 2 people stood still and let the city spin without them. Some love stories start with a spark. Theirs started with a stolen, satisfying kiss, survived a silver-streaked hurricane, and landed right back where it began. Same poster, same gallery, different people. The Grey Prince finally learned that the strongest hand you can play is an open one. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been the person holding the ladder, doing the work no one noticed, waiting for someone to finally see you? Have you ever loved someone who tried to protect you by keeping you in the dark, building a cage, and calling it a garden? And have you ever had to walk away from someone, not because the love was gone, but because you refused to become smaller to fit inside their world? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, freedom, and love without control, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.